The galaxy had many worlds, but none were as dangerous as Verdant 9. From orbit, it looked beautiful, covered in deep green forests, glowing rivers, and misty blue skies, but that beauty hid death in every corner. The soil was poisonous, the rain burned like acid, and the creatures that roamed its jungles could tear through metal as if it were paper. Even machines refused to last long there. They rusted, melted, or were eaten by strange organisms that fed on energy. No species had ever survived on Verdant 9 for more than a few days. It was known across the stars as a Deathworld, a place so hostile that only fools or the condemned would ever set foot on it. When the Galactic Concord decided humanity was too dangerous to keep among the stars, Verdant 9 became their punishment. For centuries, humans had fought wars, built weapons, and survived everything that had tried to destroy them. The Concord feared that one day humans would rise against them, so they declared humanity unstable and sent 10,000 men and women to Verdant 9, believing the planet would do what their armies could not: erase the human race. They called it a mercy, though everyone knew it was a death sentence. The decision was made by Chancellor Zeltor of the Vratha Dominion, a creature of cold reason and colder heart, who announced, "Let them fight their world. If they survive, then they are indeed monsters." The exile began with silence. Great prison ships filled with humans drifted through space toward the green world. They had no weapons, no supplies, and no hope. When the ships entered Verdant 9's atmosphere, violent storms struck without warning. Lightning tore across the sky and acid rain melted the ship's outer layers. Some vessels broke apart midair, crashing into the forests below. Others disintegrated before they even reached the ground. The Galactic Concord watched from orbit, their sensors recording every fall, every explosion, every human scream that echoed through the storm. Within hours, all signals were lost. The planet swallowed them whole. The Concord assumed it was over. Humanity, the stubborn species that had once challenged the stars, was gone. Years passed. The galaxy forgot about the exiled race. Children were told stories about Earth's people, how they were wild and cruel, how they had been sent to the Deathworld where no one could live. Verdant 9 was sealed off, declared a forbidden zone. No ship was allowed near it. The Concord's leaders congratulated themselves, believing they had rid the stars of their greatest threat. They thought nature itself had done their work for them. But far below the poisonous clouds in the shadows of the dying forests, something stirred. The planet that was meant to kill humanity had instead become its teacher. The survivors learned to breathe the toxic air, to drink the acid water after purifying it with minerals from the soil, to turn the planet's monsters into mounts and tools. Every day was a battle, but every battle made them stronger. The children who grew up on Verdant 9 were no longer like the humans who had come before. They were faster, tougher, and fearless. They learned to fight the storms, to shape metal from the bones of fallen beasts, and to turn the Deathworld's dangers into their greatest weapons. The Concord had believed humanity would disappear quietly, consumed by the planet's fury. But Verdant 9 had not ended them. It had forged them, and deep within its forests, the descendants of the exiles looked up at the stars through the green clouds and whispered a promise to the galaxy that had abandoned them. They were not gone. They were waiting. 2 decades had passed since the Galactic Concord cast humanity onto Verdant 9. The rest of the galaxy had moved on, convinced that the exiled race had long perished in the poisonous jungles and burning storms of the Deathworld. Verdant 9 had been marked as a dead planet, a silent graveyard for the most dangerous species ever known. But one day, a small Concord scout ship, Serene's Light, was sent near its orbit to collect data. The mission was simple: confirm the planet was lifeless, then return. Yet as the ship drifted close, its scanners began to flicker. Faint signals pulsed through the static, structured signals, rhythmic and organized. The crew froze. That was impossible. Verdant 9 was supposed to be empty. The captain ordered the ship closer, activating high-orbit sensors. What they saw next made their blood run cold. The surface of Verdant 9 was no longer wild. Gigantic metal towers rose from the jungles, built from stone, steel, and the remains of monstrous creatures. The jungles glowed with blue energy, and massive walls surrounded entire cities. Roads cut through the forests in perfect lines, and strange flying machines moved between glowing platforms. The Deathworld had changed, but it wasn't nature that had done it. Humanity had, The ship's scanners caught the first human transmission in 20 years. The voice was clear and steady, carrying through space with quiet pride. Verdant 9 colony to all who can hear this. Humanity endures. The bridge fell silent. The crew stared at one another, unable to speak. Against every law of nature, against every prediction of science, the humans had survived. And not just survived, they had built something extraordinary. They had turned a nightmare world into a home. The captain quickly sent the recording to the nearest Concorde relay, but before the ship could escape orbit, strange movement appeared on the sensors. Something was rising from the surface. Through the clouds, enormous winged shapes shot upward. Machines shaped like the beasts of the Deathworld, engines glowing with plasma fire. They moved too fast for the scout to react. In seconds, they surrounded the ship. The captain tried to send one last transmission, but before the words left his mouth, the Serene's light vanished in a storm of plasma and lightning. No one survived. When the Concorde received the recording days later, it spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Everyone saw the final images captured by the doomed ship, men and women in armor made from creature scales, carrying weapons that seemed grown, not built, and riding massive beasts that flew through acid clouds as if they were nothing. The words, "Humanity endures," became a message of fear. In every council hall and war chamber, panic spread. If humans could live on Verdant 9, the most lethal world in known space, what else were they capable of? What had that place turned them into? The Conquered had meant to destroy them, but it seemed they had forged something even more dangerous. Rumors grew. Some claimed the humans had learned to merge their technology with the planet's biology, creating living machines. Others said they had unlocked secrets that even the oldest races could not understand. No one knew the truth, but one thing was certain. Verdant 9 was no longer a place of death. It was the heart of something new, something strong, something unstoppable. Across the stars, worlds began to whisper again about the humans, the exiles who refused to die. They were no longer forgotten. They had risen from the world meant to kill them, and now the galaxy could only wonder one thing. If the Deathworld could not destroy them, what could? Captain Rhea Calder stood at the edge of a high cliff, the wind tearing at her hair as she looked down upon the sprawling city that now covered Verdant 9's valley. What had once been a death sentence had become a kingdom of steel and storm. Below her, humans worked tirelessly, repairing ships made from the wrecks of old escape pods and creatures' bones. Their machines growled and roared like living things, powered by the energy of the planet's storms. Rhea had been one of the first survivors, one of the few who had crawled from the burning wreckage 20 years ago. She had fought through acid rains, hunted for food among monsters, and buried too many friends. Now she was their leader, not by choice but by strength. To her people, she was not just a captain. She was a symbol of what humans had become on this cruel world, unbreakable. Life on Verdant 9 had changed the survivors in ways no one could have imagined. The air that once burned their lungs now fueled their bodies. The toxic rain that melted steel no longer touched their skin. They had learned to build shields that turned the planet's fury into power, weapons that drew energy from lightning, and armor that healed itself from the biominerals of the land. Even the creatures that once hunted them had become allies. The humans had tamed the mighty storm drakes, beasts with wings made of metallic plates and eyes that glowed like fire. They rode them through the skies, commanding thunder as their weapon. Verdant 9 was no longer their enemy. It was their greatest weapon. One evening, Rhea stood in the command chamber of the mountain fortress they called Haven Spire, listening to a strange transmission her technicians had intercepted. The signal was encrypted, but its origin was unmistakable. It came from a conquered warship. Her second-in-command, Jonas Vale, leaned over the console, frowning at the data. "They're mobilizing fleets," he said quietly. "3, maybe 4. Heading toward this sector." Rhea's jaw tightened. "They're coming to finish what they started." Jonas looked at her with unease. "They still think we're a threat, Rhea. Maybe if we send a message, tell them we're not—" She cut him off sharply. "They didn't send us here to talk, Jonas. They sent us here to die. And now they've realized their mistake." Outside, the horizon flashed with stormlight, painting her armor silver blue. She watched the sky, knowing what had to come next. The Conquered thought they were facing desperate survivors with scavenged weapons. They had no idea what humanity had become. She pressed her hand against the cold glass of the window and whispered, "Then let's show them." The following days were filled with preparation. Every forge burned through the night, crafting new storm cannons and plasma spears. The engineers built launch pads atop the cliffs, readying the fleet for takeoff. Hunters rode into the jungles to gather storm crystals that powered their weapons. Children carried metal parts to the builders, their faces fierce with determination. Even the elders stood side by side with soldiers, repairing ships that were half machine, half living creature. They all knew what was coming: war. When the conquered fleets finally entered orbit, the people of Verdant 9 stood ready. The skies darkened as massive ships blocked the sun, their silver hulls shining with arrogance. But down below, humanity's defenses came alive. Mountains opened to reveal hidden ion cannons, and the air filled with electric energy as the first storm bombs activated. Rhea climbed aboard her beast, the great Drake Tempest, its wings stretching wide as thunder rolled in the distance. She raised her weapon high, her voice echoing through the comms. "They thought they could bury us," she said. "They forgot we are the storm." And with that, the humans of Verdant 9 took to the skies, ready to face the galaxy that once abandoned them. The conquered fleet appeared above Verdant 9 like a sea of metal stretching across the heavens. Their ships glimmered under the green light of the planet, thousands of them lined in perfect formation, engines burning bright blue. They came believing the mission would be simple. They thought they were about to wipe out a few thousand survivors living in ruins. But what waited below was not weakness. It was fury forged into steel. The air around the planet shimmered with power, storms forming in unnatural patterns as if the world itself was preparing for battle. Inside her command ship, the Stormborn, Captain Rhea Calder watched the enemy ships spread across her skies. Her crew stood silent behind her, their faces set with grim determination. "They think we're prey," Rhea said softly, her eyes glowing from the reflection of lightning outside. "Let's remind them who the hunters are." The battle began the moment the conquered fleet descended through the atmosphere. The first waves of their ships met heavy resistance they never expected. From deep within the mountains, massive ion cannons roared to life, sending pillars of blue fire upward, ripping through cruisers as if they were made of paper. From the skies, storm drakes carrying human riders dove into formation, moving faster than conquered sensors could track. Their wings left trails of electricity in the air as they unleashed storm bombs, devices powered by the planet's own energy that exploded with waves of lightning. The conquered ships that were hit lost power instantly, spiraling downward in flames. The fleet that had come to exterminate humans was now fighting for survival. Inside the Stormborn, alarms flashed red as Rhea gave her commands. "Target the dreadnoughts!" she shouted. "Focus fire on their command ships. Break their line." Her voice was steady even as the ship shook from enemy fire. The Stormborn itself was a miracle of human ingenuity, a fusion of living metal and machine, its hull built from the bones of Verdant's largest beasts, its engines powered by captured lightning. It didn't just fly, it roared through the skies like a creature of legend. Jonas Vale, her second-in-command, controlled the railguns, his hands moving swiftly over the glowing controls. "Dreadnought on our left!" he yelled. Rhea nodded, activating the ship's main cannon. A beam of pure energy shot forward, cutting straight through the enemy vessel, splitting it apart in one blinding flash. The Concord Admiral, Zeltor, watched from his flagship in disbelief. Every strategy, every calculation told him this battle should have been easy. Yet his fleets were falling apart before his eyes. He had underestimated what humanity had become. "Impossible," he hissed. They had no ships, no weapons, nothing. But the truth was clear. Verdant 9 had not destroyed them. It had transformed them into something beyond his understanding. Above the raging battle, lightning split the sky as if the planet itself was alive. Human fighters darted through the chaos, small but fast, weaving between conquered ships, planting storm charges that tore through hulls like thunder exploding inside metal cages. Below them, the jungles glowed with blue energy, as ground cannons fired upward, joining the storm. Even the beasts of Verdant 9 joined the fight, creatures roaring as they charged through the fire, their skin crackling with electric light. For every human ship destroyed, 2 more conquered vessels fell. Rhea's voice echoed across the comms, sharp and fierce. "You sent us here to die," she said, "but we learned to live where death ruled. You made us stronger." Her words cut through the static as her fleet pushed upward into space, chasing the retreating Concord ships. The battle raged for hours until the dark skies of Verdant 9 burned with fire and smoke. When it ended, half the conquered fleet was gone, and the survivors fled into the void. Rhea stood on the deck of the Stormborn looking at the burning horizon. For the first time in 20 years, humanity controlled its own sky. The galaxy had come to destroy them, but instead, it had awakened the storm that would one day shake every world. The battle for Verdant 9 had ended, but for Captain Rhea Calder and her people, it was only the beginning. The once exiled humans now stood among the wreckage of the destroyed Concord fleet, surrounded by the twisted remains of alien warships drifting in the green clouds. The sky that had once belonged to the invaders was now theirs. The people of Verdant 9 gathered on the cliffs, watching pieces of burning metal fall like meteors, each one a symbol of their victory. Rhea looked upon her world, scarred but alive, and felt a quiet pride burn within her chest. The conquered had sent them to die on a Deathworld, but instead, that same world had taught them to fight harder, adapt faster, and rise stronger. Now they had ships, weapons, and technology that blended human spirit with the fury of Verdant itself. They were ready to take back the stars. Days after the battle, Rhea and her engineers worked tirelessly among the wrecked Concord vessels. They stripped the alien ships for resources, fusing human innovation with conquered designs. Within weeks, a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen began to rise above Verdant 9's jungles. The ships gleamed with organic armor that pulsed with life, their engines glowing with storm energy harvested from the planet's skies. They were fast, deadly, and alive, machines that breathed and healed, crafted by hands that had learned to bend the will of a Deathworld. They called themselves the Verdant Legion, no longer survivors, no longer outcasts, but warriors of a reborn humanity. When the first fleet was ready, Rhea stood before her people as thunder rolled across the horizon. Her voice carried over the comms, strong and clear. "They sent us here to die," she said. "They tried to erase us. But they forgot what we are. We are human. We endure. We fight. And now, we're going home." Her words sparked a roar among the crowd, a sound of both rage and hope that echoed through the mountains. The fleet launched that night, engines cutting through the clouds, rising toward the blackness of space. For the first time in 20 years, humans left Verdant 9, not as prisoners but as conquerors of their fate. Their return to the stars was swift and fierce. The first conquered outpost they encountered barely had time to raise shields before the Verdant Legion struck. The storm-forged ships moved like lightning, disabling defenses and boarding stations with precision. But instead of destroying everything in their path, the humans chose a different way. They liberated. The workers on those stations, the soldiers who had once feared them, saw the truth. These humans were not monsters. They were free beings who had survived the impossible, and now they were offering freedom to others. Word spread across the galaxy of their rise. The humans who had beaten the Deathworld were returning, and they were not seeking revenge, but justice. Soon, oppressed worlds began to rebel. Alien species long crushed under the Concord's rule rose alongside humanity. The Gorons, the Gila, the Sketh, all of them found courage in the humans' example. Rhea's fleet became a symbol of hope, her name whispered across systems as the commander who turned exile into evolution. But not everyone shared that hope. Deep in the Concord's core worlds, fear spread faster than light. Chancellor Zeltor, the very one who had ordered humanity's exile, now faced the nightmare he had created. Reports of lost fleets filled his war councils. He watched the humans advance with growing dread, realizing too late that his plan to erase them had instead forged a legend. Rhea knew the final battle was coming. She could feel it in her bones, the way storms gathered before a great strike. The Verdant Legion continued to grow as new allies joined them, each one ready to fight for a galaxy free of conquered tyranny. Standing on the bridge of her flagship, the Stormborn, Rhea gazed at the distant stars where Earth once lay and whispered to herself, "They thought we would die. They never understood. We are humanity. We rise from ruin." And with that, the fleet burned through the void, heading straight toward the heart of the empire that had once cast them away. The stars burned red as the Verdant Legion entered the Concord's core system. Space was crowded with ships, thousands of enemy vessels arranged in tight formation, their hulls gleaming with the reflection of the central sun. The Conquered had gathered every remaining fleet, desperate to defend the heart of their empire. At the center of it all floated the massive flagship Sovereign, commanded by Chancellor Zeltor himself. It was larger than a city, armed with weapons powerful enough to tear moons apart. Yet even as the humans approached, Zeltor could feel unease creeping through him. He had once thought of humans as primitive, wild, and unworthy. But now, looking at the storm-forged fleet rising from the darkness, he saw something else, something unstoppable. Captain Rhea Calder stood on the bridge of her ship, the Stormborn, watching the enemy fleet spread before her. Her eyes were calm, though her heart pounded with the weight of what was to come. Around her, her crew prepared for the battle. Jonas Vale stood by the weapons control, his hands steady, his voice quiet but sure. 10-1 odds, he said, just how we like it. Rhea smiled faintly. We were born outnumbered, she replied. Let's finish this. Outside, lightning flashed across the void as if the stars themselves were preparing for war. The first strike came from the Conquered. A wall of plasma fire burst from their ships, lighting up space in a storm of destruction. The Verdant Legion's shields flared bright, holding under the blast. Rhea gave the command, and her fleet responded like one living creature. The storm ships dove into the fire, moving faster than any Conquered pilot could track. They returned their own barrage, beams of lightning and plasma that tore through enemy lines. Every explosion painted the darkness with blue light. The humans fought like they were part of the storm itself, weaving through debris, striking from all angles, their ships roaring with the fury of Verdun 9. Admiral Zeltor watched in disbelief as his lines broke apart. They cannot win, he snarled, his voice shaking. We are the Conquered. We control the stars. But deep inside, he knew control was already slipping. His fleets were too rigid, too predictable. The humans fought with instinct, with chaos, with heart. Every move they made defied logic, but every strike landed perfectly. The Sovereign fired its main cannon, a beam strong enough to vaporize a city. It hit the Stormborn squarely, tearing through its armor. Sparks exploded across Rhea's bridge, alarms screamed, and the ship began to shudder. Jonas looked to her, blood on his face. We're losing power, he shouted. Rhea stared at the massive enemy ship on the screen, her eyes full of fire. Not yet, she said. Not while we can still fight. The Stormborn turned toward the Sovereign, its engines burning brighter than ever. Rhea opened the ship's communication channel to all fleets. For every world they enslaved. For every life they threw away. Today we show them what it means to be human. Her voice echoed through the comms, reaching every pilot, every soldier. The humans charged together, cutting through the enemy line, and the Stormborn led the way. As it closed in on the Sovereign, Rhea knew what she had to do. The ship's reactor was overloading, energy building to critical levels. Jonas, she said softly, it's time. He nodded, his eyes steady. Together they locked the course and accelerated straight toward the enemy flagship. The impact came like a second sun. The explosion shattered the Sovereign, tearing apart the Conquered command fleet in a storm of light and thunder. The shockwave spread across the system, disabling every remaining Conquered ship. When the fires faded, silence fell. Humanity had won, but at a cost. The Stormborn was gone, and with it, Captain Rhea Calder. Years later, under a new dawn, the galaxy rebuilt itself, free from Conquered rule. Verdant 9 became a symbol of strength, its people leaders of a new alliance built on unity, not fear. On the mountain where Rhea once stood, her people carved words into stone. They thought sending humans to a death world would end them. They were wrong. And as storms rolled across the sky, it was said that sometimes when the thunder roared, you could still hear her voice whisper through the wind, reminding the stars that humanity endures forever.